Hey everybody, welcome back to Bruner Tuner, and in this episode of the Miata build series, we are going to be tackling the valve seals on our VVT head. That's right folks, today we're going to be tackling a DIY on the valve stem seals in our 1.8 VVT head for our 2003 Miata GRIDLIFE build. And actually, we can get this done with the head still in the vehicle using this technique, but what I'm going to be doing, since it's off the car, we'll just do it on the bench, and I'll show you a quick way to do it with some great tools that I picked up. Let's get into it. Now, the reason we're doing these valve stem seals is because if you look on the bottom side of the head here, cylinder number 3 looks a little different than the rest, and I'm pretty sure this is because of oil leak by from the valve stem seals. Now, it wasn't bad enough to where I was seeing smoke on deceleration or being in a vacuum for prolonged periods of time and having smoke come out of the back. But after pulling up the head, I did see cylinder number 3 looked a little bit different. And so we're going to just go ahead and replace these valve stem seals since we have the head off the car. Now, I know you can get very cheap sets of SuperTech Viton valve seals online, but I opted for some OEM ones from R-Speed, and they got us a pretty good deal on these. I think they were like 90 bucks a set, which is like 80 bucks cheaper than anywhere else on the internet, so I went ahead and picked these up. Now, of course, the other reason I want to go with OEM valve seals is because I feel like Mazda probably did it the best, and they've been living in the car for 20 years now, so if I can put these in and be happy for another 20 years, it is a worthwhile investment to spend the extra money and get the OEM valve seals. So the tools I picked up, this is a valve stem seal puller. This is a good way to grab onto those seals and not mar up any surfaces inside of the head. These make quick work of pulling those out. The second tool I got is this Lyle number 36050. This is a valve keeper removal and installer tool. Now we're going to be using the smaller one. This kit does come with 2, and I'll go ahead and link that down in the description here to the Amazon link I bought this from. But this is a pretty clever way of getting your valve keepers out. Now, inside of here is a magnetic surface, and what happens is you'll put this over the top of the valve seat, and you're going to hammer it, and the force down on the spring will release the keepers, and they will magnetize to the inside of this. And the opposite happens whenever you are installing them. You'll put the valve keepers inside of the seat, and this pin, which depresses inside of the tool, will keep them aligned and in place until the spring is compressed enough for them to fall into their slots. Now, one of the most important parts when doing a valve job or any kind of valve train work is to make sure you keep everything in order where it goes. Now, what I'm using is I've got a box here that says intake side and exhaust side, and I've divided it up into the 4 cylinders with 16 slots for each valve to go into, and that's how I'm going to keep these organized. Now, the reason that's important is because each valve will have worked its tolerances in over the years, and you don't want to mix and match them because you could provide a poor seat, which would lead to even more leak by or potentially a head rebuild in the future. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get our cams pulled out of this setup. If you haven't gotten this far yet and you want to see disassembling the timing system and pulling the head, go ahead and check out the last video and you can see that there. Now, much like our head bolts, the camshafts do have a torque sequence, and we want to do the opposite of that when removing them. So we're going to start from the outside and work our way in to remove these cams. All right, so we got all of our cam caps and cams off. We've got those organized and in place where they go. And if you're ever confused, they do have some labels on each one that say like E1, E2, E3, I1, I2, I3, and that'll tell you where they go from the front of the engine towards the back on which side. Next thing we're gonna be doing is pulling out our buckets here, and you can do that just with a magnet. You hit them on there and you can pull them right out. And actually, I don't like my box method, so I'm gonna get something else that can hold these in. Here we go. This is gonna work better. It is an egg carton. What better way to get them sorted out than something that's already divided up? Now, of course, we've only got 12 slots in here. That's fine. I'm not gonna do all 16 at once before I start putting them back in. So we'll just start with cylinder number 1. slippery. Okay, now the next step is to use our tool we picked up, and we are going to release the keepers from each one. But before you do that, you've got to back up each valve with something stiff underneath to keep it from springing downwards, because as soon as you hammer on this valve, it's just going to travel with the spring. So you need to put something under there, like a folded up paper towel or something that doesn't have too much give but also isn't like rock hard to damage the valve. So here we go. This is going to slot over the top of this just like this, and we'll take our hammer, give it one good tap, and there we go. Both of our keepers are in here, and we can pull out our valve spring. I can't put into words just how easy this is, so you'll just have to take my word for it, and definitely go pick yourself up a set of these. And you'll see our keepers fell right in here. I don't know how well you guys can see them, but I'm gonna get a pick here and fish these things out. And there we go. There's one of our keepers, and these do go a specific way inside. Man, you guys can't see anything here. These do go a specific way. It's gonna be the thicker end at the top of the valve whenever you put these back in. And now that that's out, I can take my valve seal tool here. I'm gonna go around the end of it. There we go. We got our valve seal out there. And yeah guys, having the correct tools here make this super, super easy. And yeah, you can, I don't know how well you guys can see the condition of this, because these things are definitely hammered and it was time for them to get changed. All right, so that was the first one. I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of these knocked out. I'll speed up the video here for you so you're not sitting there watching me do this forever. All right, so just like that, we've got cylinder number one, all of the valve springs removed. We're going to drop the valves out of the bottom. So what I'm gonna do now is actually take the valves out. I'm gonna clean these up. I've already done one cylinder, so let's take a look. So here's what I wanna do. I've got this first valve fairly cleaned up, and then we've got this second one, and you can see all the nasty buildup on it. So we're gonna go ahead and take a Scotch-Brite pad. I'm gonna throw this in my drill chuck, spin it around, and just hold the Scotch-Brite pad on it, get the carbon cleaned off, and throw it back in. I'm not looking for perfection, but I do want to get all the junk off of it. And I think that's pretty good here. You can see we've got it more or less. All the junk is off of it, at least most of the major carbon deposits. So we'll get this put back in the valve guide and do the other two exhaust valves on the cylinder, put it all back together, and then we're gonna move on to cylinder number two. So we are going to get these valve keepers put in here, and it's gonna be finicky, but first thing we're gonna wanna do is drop them in top of the valve seat here. Remember, make sure that they are the thicker side towards the top. Once we get those dropped in there, just like that, we're gonna set it down on top of the valve spring here. Okay. Now we're gonna get our extension on the front of our tool with the springy end, and we're gonna wanna press down on this pretty hard until we feel these slot in place. And don't think I got it. Let's see. Nope, I did not get it. And I think part of the reason is because I don't have anything firm enough backing up these valves. Oh, almost got it. The problem is this bench is a little too high up for me, so I'm not able to get much leverage over the top. There it goes. Heard it pop in place that time. And if we look here, our valve keepers are holding in that valve stem just like they should be. So let's go ahead and get the rest of these done. All right, and here we are. Our valve train is back together. We got the new valve seals in there. Here are the old ones, and man, they are looking something crusty. Glad we changed those out. And in addition to our cylinder 3 exhaust valves, which were covered in carbon and oil, we found another one on the forward exhaust valve in cylinder 4. And the fact that I had great compression and no issues with misfires or anything like that led me to believe these valve stem seals were the problem. Time will tell. Hopefully we don't have to pull this apart and do valve guides as well. If it gets to that point, man, I might just throw some SuperTech valves and springs in this head. That's for another discussion though. Let's get these cams thrown back in, get the head all reassembled, and then move on to putting it back on the engine. All right guys, well, we've got our head all put back together. Valve seals are installed, valves are cleaned up, we've lubricated everything and tightened down the cam caps in their correct order to the right torque spec, which is 125 inch-pounds or about 14 newton meters. Remember to do that in 3 steps and you'll be fine. You'll see I did rotate the cams over a couple times. 1, just to get more lubricant on all sides of the lobes, and 2, I wanted to make sure that they were seated so I could go back and torque them one more time in the correct sequence and be sure that they were torqued to spec. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed these videos. As always, we do hope that you take time to like and subscribe and stick around for more content, and especially stick around for more on the Miata, because this thing will be going back together pretty soon and we will start the tuning process. So from us here at Bruno Tuner, thanks again for sticking around and we'll see you next time. Peace.